She said I was her lucky charm. Turns out, I was just her charm until luck ran out, when I walked away. I stand across the street, hands in my pockets, watching the chaos unfold through the glass walls of her empire. Lumiere tech reporters swarm the entrance, flashes from cameras bouncing off the company's fallen logo. The news ticker scrolls beneath her face on the screen above. CEO Selena Ward resigns amid company collapse. I can almost hear her voice again, the same one that once whispered promises against my skin. You're my good luck, Ethan. Don't ever leave me. Now she's inside that building, crying behind locked doors, and I'm outside, smiling faintly at the irony. People called me her shadow, her charm, her nobody. But luck doesn't vanish, it simply changes owners. It didn't start this way. It started with her smile, the one that made me believe in forever. When I first met Selena Ward, she wasn't the woman the headlines would later crucify. She was brilliant in motion, sharp, composed, and devastatingly driven. Back then, I was a software engineer tucked away in one of Lumiere Tech's quieter departments. I preferred code over people. My world was logic, clean syntax, and late nights with coffee that tasted like burnt ambition. Selena was the opposite, all fire and confidence. When she walked through the office, people straightened their backs. Her heels clicked like a metronome of authority. She didn't need to speak loudly, her silence was enough to make people scramble. The first time she spoke to me, I remember thinking it had to be a mistake. She'd stopped beside my desk, arms crossed, watching the code on my monitor. "Is this the new predictive model you built?" I nodded, trying not to sound nervous. "I'm still learning. Give it another week and it'll adapt on its own." Her lips curved slightly. Self-learning, like people. That was Selena, always turning logic into poetry. From that day, she'd stop by more often. Sometimes it was about work, sometimes it wasn't. She'd linger near my desk long after meetings ended, talking about market trends, travel, or her insomnia. She'd say, "You make chaos sound simple, Ethan. I need more of that in my life." I didn't realize then that she meant it literally. Our relationship began in fragments, late nights debugging software, half-eaten takeout boxes, and the glow of monitors reflecting in her eyes. She'd sit beside me, heels kicked off, laughing softly at my terrible jokes. There was something human about her in those moments, stripped of her CEO armor. One night, as we watched a program compile, she said quietly, "I never thought I could have both, success and love. You make me believe I can." Those words hit deeper than I expected. Somewhere between deadlines and coffee runs, we fell into something that felt real. I didn't care that she was my boss or that she made more in a week than I did in a year. All I saw was the woman who fell asleep on my shoulder at 2 a.m. after saying she didn't believe in sleep. We tried to keep it private, but in an office full of eyes, secrets don't last. When word spread, the gossip didn't bother me. I knew how it looked, the powerful CEO and the quiet engineer. But Selena never seemed to care. If anything, she leaned into it. She'd hold my hand in the break room, let whispers follow her down the hall. She wore confidence like perfume. I was proud to stand beside her. When she proposed, it wasn't romantic, not in the traditional sense. We were on the office rooftop after a long product launch, champagne still cold in her hand. She just looked at me and said, "You stabilize me, Ethan. I need that. Will you marry me?" I said yes without hesitation. The wedding was small, almost secretive. No press, no grand ceremony. Just a few close friends, a garden under soft yellow lights, and her hand trembling in mine as she whispered, "You're my luck." She started calling me that often, her lucky charm. Before every deal, every pitch, every high-stakes meeting, she'd brush her hand against mine and say it again with a smile. "Wish me luck, charm." At first, I thought it was endearing, a private joke between us. I'd laugh and tell her she didn't need luck when she had talent. But she'd insist. You don't understand. Things go better when you're around. You're my balance, Ethan. It sounded sweet then. Now, it sounds like a prophecy. I left my job a few months after we married. Not because she asked me to, but because I wanted to support her. I started managing logistics for her projects, handling internal software operations, making sure her empire ran smoothly. She was the face. I was the foundation. Our days were long but happy, shared breakfasts before meetings, quiet dinners after long days. She'd fall asleep beside me, murmuring plans for the future. We'll build this together, love. Lumiere will be our legacy. For a while, it felt perfect. I didn't notice the distance growing, not yet. I was too busy being grateful. Too proud to realize that I was slowly becoming something else in her eyes. A charm. A symbol. Not a partner. But that came later. For now, I still believed in us, in love wrapped around ambition, in her soft, good night, whispered against my chest, in the illusion that luck had nothing to do with it. At first, I thought it was just the workload. CEOs don't really get to rest, and Selena had always been the kind of person who couldn't breathe unless she was chasing something bigger. But there was a shift, small at first, subtle enough to dismiss. The late nights got later. The smiles got shorter. And when she did look at me, it wasn't the same way she used to. It was distracted, like I was a pleasant memory interrupting something important. I'd make her coffee in the mornings, the way she liked it, oat milk, 1 sugar, and set it on her desk while she scanned through emails. She'd mumble a "thanks" without looking up. I tried not to take it personally. I told myself love has seasons. But the distance kept growing. One evening, I walked into her office after hours. The lights from the city spilled through the windows, catching on the silver edges of her awards. She was on the phone, her voice sharp and rehearsed, the one she used for investors. When she noticed me, she muted the call and smiled that PR smile. "Ethan, I'm just wrapping up. Did you need something?" I hesitated. "Just thought I'd bring you dinner. You've been skipping meals again." She glanced at the bag in my hand like it was a distraction. "That's sweet, but I'm not hungry." Her tone was polite, not affectionate. I left the food on her desk anyway. When I turned to go, I heard her unmute the call. "Sorry about that, my husband's just sweet. He likes being around when big things happen. Says he's my good luck." The person on the other end laughed. Selena did too. Something tightened in my chest. That word again, luck. Always luck. I tried to laugh it off later, telling myself she didn't mean it literally. But it kept happening. Every time we had a major success, a product launch, a new deal, she'd tell people, "Ethan was with me that day. He's my charm." At first, it was almost flattering. Then it started sounding rehearsed, like a line she'd memorized for interviews. And the whispers began. At team gatherings, I'd catch fragments of conversation when people thought I wasn't listening. "Did you hear? The board thinks Selena's lucky charm is real. Yeah, her numbers skyrocketed right after they got married. Maybe she should bottle him and sell it. I wonder if he actually does anything, or if he's just here for moral support." The laughter that followed wasn't cruel exactly, just condescending enough to sting. I wanted to tell Selena about it, but I didn't. She had enough pressure already. Instead, I worked harder. I picked up more responsibilities, streamlined her logistics team, even fixed bugs personally when her engineers got stuck. I thought if I made myself indispensable, people would see me for who I was, not what I represented. But then came the night that broke that illusion. We were having dinner, one of those rare evenings she actually came home before midnight. I told her about a project idea I'd been developing quietly, an AI-driven optimization tool that could cut Lumiere's operating costs by nearly a third. I'd been building prototypes in my spare time, hoping to surprise her with it. When I finished explaining, she set her fork down slowly. "Ethan," she said, "you're brilliant, but I don't think it's smart for you to be involved in strategic projects anymore." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "You're too emotional about the company. You take things personally. Investors want decisions made with precision, not feeling." Her tone was calm, surgical. "So what am I supposed to do? Just stand around and smile when they sign the deals?" She sighed, leaning back. "Don't be so dramatic, Ethan. You make me feel confident. Isn't that enough?" There was no malice in her voice, that almost made it worse. She wasn't trying to hurt me, she simply didn't see the problem. That night, when she fell asleep, I stayed awake staring at the ceiling. I couldn't shake the image of her saying that line to someone else, "He makes me feel confident." It wasn't love anymore. It was useful. Still, I kept trying. I told myself maybe we were just drifting temporarily. Every couple has rough phases. Then came my birthday. She had promised, just one evening together, no meetings, no calls. We'd even planned a quiet dinner at home. But an hour before she was supposed to arrive, I got a text. Something came up. "Investor dinner. Don't wait up." I sat at the table anyway, the candles burning down into wax puddles beside an untouched meal. Her favorite wine sat open, breathing for no one. When she finally came home, it was past midnight. She smelled like perfume that wasn't hers, too floral, too strong. She kissed my cheek absently, mumbled something about a successful deal, and fell asleep in her clothes. That's when I started to feel it, the invisible wall between us. The kind built not from arguments, but from silence. The next few weeks blurred together. Selena became colder, her attention consumed entirely by Lumiere's expansion. I'd hear her taking late-night calls on the balcony, whispering names I didn't recognize, investors, partners, people she never introduced me to. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd smile faintly. "Don't worry about it. It's just business." But the way her eyes avoided mine told me otherwise. There were other signs, too. She stopped touching me. Stopped looking for me before big meetings. Sometimes she'd even forget to tell me where she was traveling. It wasn't until one afternoon, when I overheard two executives talking near the elevator, that I realized just how far gone things were. She said he's like a lucky rabbit's foot. As long as she keeps him happy, things stay smooth. Seriously? That's insane. Hey, whatever works. Investors love a good narrative. They laughed as the elevator doors closed. I stood there frozen, staring at my reflection in the polished steel. A mascot. That's what I'd become. Not a partner. Not a husband. Just an accessory to her success. That evening, when Selena came home, I asked her the question that had been clawing at me for weeks. "Do you really believe I'm just lucky?" She looked up from her phone, amused. "What? Everyone keeps saying it. Investors. The board. Even your PR team. They call me your good luck charm. Is that what I am to you?" She tilted her head, smiling faintly, not kindly, just indulgently. "Ethan, don't take office gossip seriously. Then tell me it's not true." She laughed softly. "You're overthinking. You do bring me luck. But that's not a bad thing, is it? Selena, I'm your husband, not a superstition." "Don't be so dramatic," she repeated. "You make me feel confident. Isn't that enough?" Her phone buzzed. She looked down, ignoring the silence that followed. And in that silence, something inside me cracked. For the first time, I saw her clearly, not as the woman I married, but as the CEO who viewed love as leverage. That night, she slept soundly beside me. I lay awake, watching her face in the dim light, wondering when I'd stopped being Ethan, and started being her charm. The truth is, I still loved her. That's what made it hurt more. Because even as the distance grew and her eyes grew colder, part of me still wanted to believe we could go back. Back to the nights when she laughed at my jokes. Back to the rooftop where she said she needed me. But love only works when both people are looking in the same direction. And Selena's eyes were already on someone, or something, else. Betrayal never comes like thunder. It seeps in quietly, through silences, through smiles that don't reach the eyes, through words that sound right but feel wrong. For weeks, I felt it building, that invisible distance pulling tighter. Selena was always busy. Always somewhere else, in her head, in her world, in her empire. Then came the night I found the messages. It was late, close to midnight. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, her laptop still open on the coffee table. I only meant to close it, to save her from spilling her wine on the keys. But then her phone buzzed, and I saw the preview flash across the screen. You really think the lucky husband story still works? It was from her business partner, Adrian. A name I'd heard too often lately. Her reply was right there, glowing in the dim light. Of course it does. Investors eat it up. A stable marriage sells reliability. Ethan's sweet but clueless, he doesn't realize how useful his image is. My hand froze on the screen. For a long moment, I just stared. My name, dissected, mocked, reduced to a PR tool. Something inside me went cold. I shouldn't have looked further, but I did. The thread ran deeper, screenshots, investor comments, marketing angles. It wasn't just a casual conversation. It was a strategy. I had a strategy. And then I found the line that shattered everything. Honestly, I only married him because things go well when he's around. It's weird, but it works. Why question success? I read it twice, then a third time. Every repetition cut deeper. All those nights she'd called me her lucky charm, all those smiles before meetings, all those wish me luck kisses, they weren't affection. They were rituals. She didn't believe in us. She believed in the illusion of luck. I sat there in silence for hours, watching the messages repeat in my head like static. Around 3 a.m., she stirred awake. Ethan. You're still up. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. The woman who had once made my world feel full, now a stranger wearing her face. She noticed the laptop open, the phone in my hand. Her expression shifted instantly, composure sliding back into place. You shouldn't go through my messages, she said flatly. Why? My voice cracked before I could steady it. Because I might find out what I really am to you. She sighed, stood, brushed imaginary dust from her dress. Ethan, don't start this now. It's late. No, I said quietly. Now's perfect. She crossed her arms. Fine. What do you want me to say? I want the truth. Her eyes softened for a moment, or maybe I imagined it. Then she laughed, that low, cold laugh that always came when she felt cornered. You're taking this too personally, she said. This is business, Ethan. Optics matter. People want to invest in stability, in a success story. You and I were that story. Where? She hesitated. Look, you wouldn't have this life without me. You live in a penthouse you didn't pay for. You travel first class because I bring you along. Some people are meant to support, not shine. You're good at that. Be proud of it. Each word felt like a slap. I stared at her, waiting for a trace of guilt, of remorse, anything human. But all I saw was calculation. So that's it, I said finally. You married me for luck. She smirked faintly. Don't make it sound so crude. I married you because you were good for me. You still could be, if you stop making this emotional. I didn't answer. I just turned, walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" "Somewhere luck doesn't matter." She scoffed. "Oh, don't be dramatic. You'll calm down. We can talk tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. I packed a small bag and left before sunrise. No confrontation. No theatrics. Just silence. I didn't take her car or her credit card. I took my old laptop, a few clothes, and the fragments of myself she hadn't used up yet. The doorman looked surprised when I passed him. "Mr. Ward, leaving so early?" I just nodded. "Yeah. Finally." And that was it. No final argument. No closure. I walked out of the building that morning as a man stripped bare, no position, no plan, no wife. Just freedom, sharp and cold like winter air. For the first time in years, I felt something raw and terrifying, clarity. In the weeks that followed, I expected to feel regret. But all I felt was a strange, quiet emptiness. Selena didn't call right away. Not even a text. I figured she was too busy spinning a story, the CEO's husband taking a break, or whatever sounded respectable. But then, slowly, the stories began to shift. It started small, a product launch glitch. A shipment delay. A client withdrew without warning. I saw it all on the news, like an outsider. Lumiere Tech faces production issues. Then, investors question Ward's management amid losses. I almost didn't believe it. Then more headlines followed. PR misstep causes public backlash, ad campaign pulled after backlash over plagiarism allegations. The empire she built so carefully began to crack. Selena, being Selena, didn't panic at first. I could picture her sitting in that corner office, heels tapping, voice steady as she told her team, "It's temporary. Numbers dip, then recover. They always do." But I also knew her better than anyone. Beneath the calm, she'd be unraveling. A few ex-colleagues reached out to me quietly. One told me that she'd been snappish, distracted. Another said she'd started carrying that old gold bracelet, the one she wore the day we met, like a talisman. Superstition. Again. "Guess she's missing her lucky charm," one of them joked. I didn't laugh. Because deep down, I knew she truly believed it. That's the thing about people like Selena, they don't believe in love or loyalty, but they'll worship luck when it benefits them. It was poetic, in a way. Every system she'd built relied on control, precision, image. But once she lost me, the cracks she ignored began to spread, her own decisions turning against her. A month later, Lumiere Tech announced massive layoffs. Investors fled. The stock plummeted. And for the first time, her photo in the business magazines wasn't captioned with "visionary" or "icon." It was "struggling CEO." I watched all of it from a small apartment miles away, sipping cheap coffee instead of champagne. There was no satisfaction yet, just disbelief. I had spent years believing her success was our success. Now I was watching her empire crumble without lifting a finger. Fate, irony, karma, call it what you want. I didn't cause it. I didn't need to. Selena did it herself. Still, I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel like some kind of justice. Because for all her talk of logic and business, she built everything on something as fragile as superstition. And when her luck walked away, the illusion broke. She tried reaching out eventually. A few texts at first, polite, professional, like we were ex-colleagues instead of ex-lovers. "Hope you're doing well. Would love to catch up sometime, maybe talk things through." I didn't reply. Then the messages changed. "I miss you. Things aren't the same without you. You said you believed in us, Ethan. Please, talk to me." I deleted them all. Because she wasn't missing me. She was missing the version of herself that thrived when I was around. By the time I finally turned on the TV and saw her face during a press conference, pale, trembling, trying to explain away a disastrous merger collapse, I didn't feel pity. I just felt done. She had built her fortune on borrowed belief, mine, and once that ran dry, everything she owned began to turn to dust. And standing there, watching it unfold from afar, I realized something. I wasn't her luck. I was her balance. And she destroyed it with her own hands. When I left Selena, I didn't have a plan. I didn't have ambition. I didn't even have anger, not the kind that explodes, just the quiet kind that burns slow and low, like embers under ash. I moved to a small coastal city 3 hours away from the chaos of Lumiere Tech skyline. The kind of place where nobody cared who I was or who I used to be. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment with creaky floors and a view of the sea. It was small, silent, and honest, everything my old life wasn't. For the first few weeks, I barely spoke. I walked by the shore at dawn, letting the salt air scrape the memories off me one by one. I stopped checking the news. I cooked simple meals. I wrote code again, not for profit, not for recognition, just for the rhythm of logic. It was a kind of self-repair. People think revenge begins with rage. It doesn't. It begins with stillness, when the noise dies down and you're left with clarity so sharp it feels surgical. I realized something during those quiet days: Selena didn't destroy me. She revealed it to me. She showed me exactly how much of my worth I'd traded for the illusion of being needed. So, I began to rebuild, not for her, not to prove a point, but to remember who I was before I became her shadow. I called it Ecliptech. The name came to me while watching an eclipse over the ocean, the moment light gets swallowed and returns stronger. It felt right. The company started small. Just me and an old laptop. I didn't want investors, not yet. I wanted purpose. Then, one by one, people began finding me. The first was Nora, a former Lumiere engineer. She'd been one of Selena's best, until she left after a screaming match about creative control. She reached out after reading a small online post I'd written about ethical design in AI. "You wrote this, didn't you?" she'd messaged. "It sounds like you." When we met for coffee, she didn't bring up Selena, but I could see it in her eyes, that same exhaustion I'd once lived with. "I'm tired of building for people who only care about profit," she said. "If you're doing something different, I want in." By the end of the week, she was part of Ecliptech. Then came Marcus, Lumiere's former logistics head. Then Lena from R&D. Each had their own story of how Selena's leadership, her obsession with optics, her dismissal of people as tools, had pushed them out. I never had to recruit them. They came on their own. We worked out of a rented warehouse. No glass walls, no corporate slogans, no press releases, just ideas and caffeine. What we built wasn't revolutionary in concept, but in integrity. Tools that are simplified, not manipulated. Systems that predicted market needs through open data, not exploitation. Ecliptech grew faster than I expected. Investors noticed. A few of them, ironically, had once backed Lumiere. At first, I avoided them. I didn't want to become what she was. But when one investor told me, "You remind me of Lumiere before it got corrupted," I realized the irony: her downfall was becoming my fuel. I knew Selena's habits better than anyone, her patterns, her decision-making, her timing. I didn't need to steal anything. I just knew how she thought. When she planned to launch a new smart logistics AI, I predicted the features 6 months in advance and released a cleaner, faster, open-source version. When she rebranded Lumiere's hardware line, I offered sustainable, consumer-friendly alternatives that undercut her by 30%. Every move she made, I was already there, quiet, efficient, untraceable. It wasn't malice. It was balanced. For years, I'd been the quiet force behind her success. Now, I was the quiet shadow beneath her failure. I didn't announce my company publicly for months. But the moment investors began pulling out of Lumiere to join Eclipse Tech, her PR team had to acknowledge it. I saw the first article by accident. Ex-husband of CEO Selena Ward launches rising tech firm, investors call it, the new era of ethical innovation. My photo wasn't in it, but her name was, and that alone was enough to sting her. Within a week, I started getting messages again. Selena. Ethan, I saw the article. Congratulations. I'm proud of you. Then, a few days later. Maybe we could talk. For old time's sake. I didn't respond. The texts kept coming, shifting from polite to personal. Things have been difficult at Lumiere. Everyone's panicking. You always knew how to fix things. I could use that right now. You know, I never stopped thinking about you. Each one read like a desperate attempt to rewrite history. But I'd learned something important: people like Selena only see value when it benefits them. I wasn't her comfort anymore. I was her consequence. I remember sitting in my new office, a far cry from her glass palace, staring at her latest message. Her voice echoed in my memory, "You make me feel confident." Isn't that enough? It wasn't. Not anymore. She thought she owned luck. She never realized I was the one making it. That realization changed everything for me. My revenge wasn't about ruining her, it was about restoring myself. I wasn't trying to take from her, I was just taking back what was always mine: control. Still, I can't pretend it was easy. There were nights when I missed her, not the woman she was, but the illusion of who I thought she'd been. The smell of her perfume still lingered on one of my old shirts. I didn't throw it away. Some ghosts are useful, they remind you of what not to believe in. When the next quarter's reports came out, Lumiere's decline had become public knowledge. Their losses were staggering. Employees were leaving faster than she could replace them. Meanwhile, Eclipse Tech's growth curve looked like something out of a dream. Investors called it luck. I called it precision. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sometimes, when I worked late at night, I'd catch a news segment about her, Selena Ward, the once celebrated visionary, now struggling to keep her company afloat. Her tone had changed. The fire in her voice was gone, replaced by strain. It would have been easy to gloat, to feel victorious. But I didn't. I felt, still. Because what I'd learned through all of it was simple: true power doesn't come from control or image. It comes from peace. And peace, for me, meant silence. So when she left voicemails, whispering apologies, crying softly in between words, I didn't answer. I listened once. Just once. "Ethan, please. I was wrong. I thought I was building something unbreakable, but it was you. You were the balance. Everything's falling apart. I don't even know who I am anymore." I ended the message halfway through. There was nothing left to say. The man she'd mocked for being too emotional, too soft, too forgettable, had become the man she couldn't forget. Not because he destroyed her. Because he survived her. That's the part she never understood: luck isn't magic. It's consistent. It's grace under betrayal. It's walking away without the need to look back. And while she was trying to patch the sinking ship that was Lumiere, I was already steering a new one, stronger, steadier, free of ghosts. By the end of that year, Eclipse Tech had quietly surpassed Lumiere in valuation. Investors called it poetic justice. I called it math. I didn't seek revenge. I built something better, and let that be the revenge. Still, sometimes, I drive past her old headquarters when I'm in the city. The building looks smaller now. Or maybe I've just outgrown it. The lights still shine late into the night, but I know she's in there, haunted by her own reflection, wondering where her luck went. And I wonder if she ever realizes, it was never luck at all. It was love. And she broke it. The storm didn't come suddenly. It built, quietly, like everything else between us ever had. Lumiere Tech was already bleeding when the final blow arrived, not a strike of vengeance, but a shift of gravity. Her biggest investor, Harrison Group, had been her lifeline since the beginning. They'd weathered scandals for her, poured millions into her expansions, defended her name on every business front. Selena had always said, "As long as Harrison stands with me, Lumiere stands forever." Forever, as it turns out, lasts until trust runs out. It was a Monday morning when I got the call. "Ethan," my CFO said, voice tight with a mix of disbelief and excitement. "Harrison just pulled out of Lumiere's board. They've signed with us. Exclusively." For a moment, I didn't say anything. I just looked out the glass window of Eclipteca's new headquarters, sunlight spilling over the city skyline, and breathed in the silence. It wasn't a triumph I felt. It was inevitable. Within hours, the media caught wind of it. Headline: Ecliptech overtakes Lumiere Tech in record time, ex-husband's company dominates market share. I read the line twice, then turned off my phone. Some people would have celebrated. Some would have thrown a party. I went back to work. Because this was never about revenge anymore. It was about closure, the kind that doesn't come from words, but from balance restored. Still, by the end of that week, the fallout was everywhere. Lumiere's employees began resigning en masse. Investors demanded answers. The stock collapsed. Reporters camped outside her office tower, chasing sound bites from a CEO who had once commanded boardrooms with a glance. And through it all, I stayed silent. Until the day she showed up. It was a Friday, fitting, somehow. The air smelled like rain, and the office was unusually quiet when my assistant walked in, pale-faced. "Mr. Ward," she said softly. "Selena Ward is here. She's asking to see you." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Then I saw her. Selena stood at the glass doors of my office, wearing a wrinkled suit that had once screamed power but now just whispered defeat. Her hair was pulled back hastily, makeup smudged, eyes hollow, like someone who hadn't slept in days. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked small. When she stepped inside, the room seemed to shrink with her. "Ethan," she said, her voice a whisper too soft for the woman I remembered. "You're hard to reach." I didn't offer her a seat. She took one anyway, hands trembling slightly as she placed her bag down. There was a long silence before she spoke again. "Lumiere's collapsing," she said bluntly, eyes darting around as if afraid to meet mine. "Investors are gone, partners pulling out, PR's a disaster. I've tried everything." I said nothing. She looked up finally, and her voice cracked. "You win, okay? Is that what you wanted?" I studied her for a long moment. "I never wanted to win, Selena. I wanted peace." She laughed bitterly, running a hand through her hair. "Peace? You call this peace? You ruined me." "No," I said quietly. "You ruined yourself." I just stepped out of the way. Her eyes filled then, not with anger, but with something closer to fear. "Ethan. I was wrong," she whispered. "You were my luck." For a moment, the room felt heavier, like the words themselves carried all the years between us. I stood slowly, looking down at her, not in triumph, but in something quieter. "No, Selena," I said. "I was never your luck. I was your balance. You just mistook love for leverage." She blinked, the words hitting harder than I expected. Her composure shattered completely then. The mask fell, the CEO, the strategist, the woman who could turn boardrooms into battlefields, gone. What sat before me was just Selena. The one who used to laugh at midnight over cold noodles. The one who'd once held my hand and called me her miracle. And now, she was crying. Outside the glass walls of my office, cameras flashed, reporters who'd caught the moment, hungry for the image of a fallen queen begging at her ex-husband's feet. She noticed them too. Her shoulders shook. "Please, make them stop," she whispered. I could have. A single call to security, and the scene would have ended. But this wasn't my doing anymore, it was a consequence. "Selena," I said softly. All of this, is what happens when you build your empire on borrowed faith." She covered her face with her hands, the sobs breaking through the last of her control. I watched for a moment longer, not out of cruelty, but out of understanding. There was nothing left to say. No forgiveness, no hatred. Just an ending. I turned to leave, her voice echoing faintly behind me. "Ethan, please. Don't go." I paused at the door, and looked back once. "I already did," I said. Then I walked out, past the cameras, past the noise, past everything we had ever been. Reporters shouted questions. "Mr. Ward. How does it feel to surpass Lumiere? Was this revenge?" I didn't answer. Because it wasn't revenge. Not really. It was symmetrical. As I stepped outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, pattering softly against the pavement. Somewhere behind me, the flash of cameras captured her collapse, the woman who had built her world on luck, now drowning in the absence of it. I kept walking, hands in my pockets, expression unreadable. And in that calm, detached quiet, a single thought surfaced, simple, steady, true. She built her empire on my shoulders, and when I stepped aside, it fell exactly where it was meant to. The rain fell harder. Somewhere, thunder rolled, not as punishment, but as punctuation. And I realized, finally, that I didn't need her apology, her validation, or even her ruin. All I ever needed was to walk away, and mean it. It's raining again. The kind of slow, silver rain that paints the city in reflections, the kind that blurs lights and makes everything look softer than it is. I stand by the window of Eclipteca's headquarters, a mug of coffee cooling in my hand, watching people hurry across the street below with umbrellas tilted against the wind. It's been 6 months since that day. 6 months since she walked out of my office for the last time. Ecliptech has grown beyond what I imagined. New contracts, new partners, new faces that don't look at me as someone's shadow, but as their own leader. The air here feels lighter, honest. Sometimes, when I glance at the news, I still see her name. Small headlines now. Lumiere Tech auctioned off its assets. Its brand is sold in fragments to smaller firms. Selena hasn't made a public appearance in months. They say she's abroad somewhere, trying to start again. I hope she does. I really do. Because what happened between us wasn't about destroying her, it was about ending the illusion. The rain taps against the glass, steady and rhythmic. My reflection stares back at me, calm, collected, whole. I take a sip of the cold coffee and let the quiet settle. For the first time in years, I feel free of her voice in my head, of her words about fate and luck and superstition. Luck. That's what she always believed in, the invisible hand that turned tides, that gave her power, that made her believe she was untouchable. But I learned something she never did. Luck fades when it's tested. Effort doesn't. I turn away from the window, the faint hum of Eclipteca's servers filling the silence like a heartbeat. The city outside moves on, the world turning, indifferent yet alive. And as I walk back to my desk, I whisper the truth she never understood, not to anyone, not for anyone to hear, but for myself. She believed in luck. I believed in effort. Guess which one lasts longer? The rain keeps falling, steady and certain, like work, like consequence, like everything real. And this time, I don't look back.